Hello, friends. I am driving in a state of extreme sadness because of what had just happened to me. My mood is very unstable and I need motivation more than ever. Please, listen to the story I'm about to tell you and help me because I'm really angry right now. I'm John, 27, currently living in the US with my wife and son. My wife, Katie, 27, was a friend of mine. My wife and I met when we were both 20 years old, young, and a bit stupid. Students after 2 years of college will fall into the illusion that they know everything they need to know in the world and hence act immature. Besides, the crisis of studies and employment after graduation was another thing that led us to have frequent parties in the dorm. At that time, both Katie and I attended a party with our friends. We drank a lot of alcohol and got drunk the first night we met. I only remembered everything when I woke up with Katie lying naked next to me, wrapped in my thin blanket in my bed in my dorm room. It turned out we were drunk and brought each other to my room, had sex, and fell asleep like that. Seeing Katie's beautiful face and attractive body beside me, I completely forgot to ask if she used any contraception because I was sure I didn't see a condom used that night. But we got along well in sex, so after that first night, we had more dates of the same type a few more times. I didn't know what it was like for Katie, but for me, everything was just youthful bliss at the time. I didn't think about long-term commitment. But outside my expectations, Katie discovered a few weeks later that she was pregnant. Yes, it was true that for the first time when we had sex, I was not sure if any contraceptive methods were used, and I also did not objectively ask Katie because I trusted her. But the result was then like that. She got pregnant. I couldn't help but doubt the origin of that pregnancy. Although we had sex together before, there was no guarantee that I was her only one. But I was once again moved by the frail looks and tears of Katie when she brought the news of her pregnancy to me. She was worried that she wouldn't be able to finish her thesis and graduate on time because of the pregnancy. I loved her and felt pity for her because I was about to join the US Marines 5 months later to cover my studies, which meant that pregnant Katie would have to take care of the baby alone. More importantly, I had to grow up in a house without a father, and I swore to myself that I would never allow that to happen to my children in the future. So though my love for Katie wasn't deep enough, I proposed to her before I left. My proposal was heavy because I was so young and not ready. Fast forward to us at present, which is 7 years after everything began. We were married as my promise before joining the US Marines. Although our marriage was difficult at times, with many problems arising because we did not love and understand each other enough to sympathize, we learned how to reconcile everything and gradually fell deep in love with each other. Katie always devoted herself to me. She waited for me faithfully and patiently the days I was in the Army. I was very touched by that affection and her faithfulness. The day I returned, Katie and my son came to pick me up. The feelings at that time were indescribably special when in my arms were not only beautiful Katie, but our boy, the fruit of our love. To make up for her lonely days, I tried my best to support my family. I was always honest with Katie and my son. Whatever happens, I never allow myself to let my son grow up without the loving care of both parents. As for Katie, sometimes I feel that she's always so ecstatic, as if she regretted and atoned for something she did in the past. My hunch was indeed true. At a recent gathering of the university that Katie and I attended, I wasn't certain whether it was accidental or not, but an old friend whom I knew about the time I met my wife approached me at the party. His name was Joseph. Ever since meeting at the party, he has been clinging to me with a very strange and somewhat aggressive expression. He kept asking me if I was still with Katie, to which I said yes. But when I tried to ask why he asked me about Katie so much, he just laughed outrageously. I tried to stay close to him at that party and get him drunk to find out the truth. While too drunk to control his words, Joseph mentioned too many crazy things. He said he was blackmailing my wife recently, while I as a husband didn't know a damn thing. He said that recently he was in a bad position and needed money to sustain his life, and my wife has been hiding a secret that he can use to ask for money. He screamed that he dated Katie before me, yet I stole her from him. I wasn't sure what he meant and asked him to explain, and that was when the secret was revealed. He said that Katie had been dating him for months before I showed up at a party, just when they were angry at each other. It was a big problem regarding their intention after graduating from university, and temporarily, they could not find a common voice, so they argued non-stop. The quarrel lasted until the day I met Katie at the party that made us drunk and had sex with each other. Joseph also mentioned in detail that although they argued, they had sex as usual until she met me for the first time and loved me. From then on, Katie refused to talk or attempt to heal the relationship with him anymore. He hated me for it. Oh my God, can you believe such shocking news? So, this means the son I love may not be my biological son? And Katie, the wife who always appeared to be faithful and willing to sacrifice, turned out to have always been deceiving me? I couldn't get those thoughts out of my head. In a fit of anger, I punched the bastard Joseph in a daze of the old classmates. Then I immediately drove home with too many thoughts in my head. I didn't interrogate Katie immediately because she was on a long business trip outside the city we lived in. I didn't want to talk to her right away. When I went home and faced our 7-year-old son, I broke down and cried, which made my son extremely worried. I did not explain anything, but lulled him to sleep instead. The next morning, I immediately went to buy a DNA kit that could be used at home and used it with my son. I followed the directions on the box while praying that I was just too suspicious. I may hate my wife, but I love my son more than anything and don't want any reason to hate him. But fate did not smile at me. The results came back a day after when my son was playing soccer in the backyard. 0%. He is not my biological son. My whole world turned upside down. I sat dumbfounded at not knowing how to act or feel at the time. I could not even cry. I still love my son, even then when I knew he is not my own. I was with him when he was born, and I will never leave him. Absolutely nothing would change that. But I was nothing more than a zombie at that moment. I hated my wife more than ever. She cheated on me for the past 7 years and let me raise someone else's child. What a shame. She knew the truth from the beginning, yet decided to cheat on me. I couldn't forgive that deceitful woman. I phoned Katie during that furious moment and said everything without giving her a chance to explain. At the end of the phone call, when Katie was crying and begging me to wait for her to come back since she was only 30 minutes away from home, I became colder than ever. I ended the conversation like this: "Don't find me and your son anymore. We will disappear from your life immediately, while you should start thinking about going to court and getting divorced. And I will claim custody of the child." After that, I hung up immediately. It took me nearly 15 minutes to pack up the things I needed to take my son with me. He kept asking for a reason, but I did not explain. I just wanted to take him out of that house as soon as possible so that my wife could not arrive home in time to stop us. My whole marriage was a lie, and I was extremely depressed. As I was loading our stuff into the trunk of the car, I suddenly heard my son call from behind, asking me to run to the middle of the road to get the ball. He was playing with it, but unintentionally let it roll away. Being in a rush and frustrated, I didn't pay much attention and rushed out to get that damn ball. But at that very moment, a car from somewhere appeared. I stood dumbfounded when seeing the headlights of the car were less than 2 meters away from me, when suddenly there was a strong thrust from somewhere, pushing me away. I escaped death miraculously thanks to that. But when I turned around, I saw my son standing on the porch, crying loudly. Between us was a horrific scene, with Katie being tossed away many meters from the car. She lied there, in the middle of a pool of blood, having stopped breathing next to her son's balloon. Katie, my cheating wife, atoned for her sins with her own life. At that moment of life and death, she proved her regret by sacrificing herself to save me from the car. That girl has been in love with me and faithful to me ever since the first night we were together. Her mistakes belonged entirely in the past, but because of wanting to preserve the happiness of the family, she was unable to say the truth. Yet I was a cowardly husband who did not give her a chance to explain. My anger has killed Katie. My son has no mother now because of my stupidity. I will never be able to forgive myself and the one who has caused all these things. It has been 1 month since the accident, and today I have completed my investigation. I have sent our son to my parents' house so that I can safely complete the task of revenge for Katie in particular, and the happiness of my family in general. I have found the home address of that goddamn Joseph. After today, there will only be either that bastard or I survive. I am ready to go to jail for the things I intend to do with him, as long as I can avenge my ill fated Katie. Don't ask me about my intentions, because it will be too violent to mention here. Don't try to stop me either, because I've made up my mind. I just pray that my parents will be able to take care of my son well enough. He has suffered so much. Wish me luck, guys. Goodbye.